The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between star systems. It was bigger than most planets and home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. Today, the Great Council chamber buzzed with excitement and worry. Ambassador Zektar stood at the center of the circular room. His blue skin shimmered under the bright lights as he spoke to representatives from 47 different alien species. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and some were just floating clouds of gas that somehow could think and talk. "Friends of the galaxy," Zektar said, his voice carrying to every corner of the huge room. "We have a problem. For 300 years the humans have stayed hidden in their small corner of space. They refuse to talk to us. They refuse to trade with us. They refuse to let anyone enter their territory." A Xanthari captain named Jorik slammed his fist on his desk. He looked like a 7-foot-tall lizard with sharp teeth. "Why do we even care about these humans? They only control 12 star systems. We control thousands." Dr. Velmoth, a Thakari scientist with 6 arms and compound eyes, clicked her mandibles nervously. "Because, Captain Jorik, they are the only species in the galaxy that has never been conquered, never been defeated, and never been understood. Every other species has joined the Council or been forced to join. The humans just exist." The room fell quiet. Everyone remembered the stories their grandparents told about the early days of galactic expansion. Every species had tried to contact or conquer the humans at least once. All had failed, not because the humans fought back with great armies or superweapons, but because something always went wrong. Ships would malfunction, crews would become sick. Some explorers would return speaking nonsense about lights in their heads and voices that were not their own. "There is more," Zektar continued. 3 days ago, a human ship broke down near Kepler Station. The crew asked for help, which surprised everyone. It was the first time in 50 years that humans had been seen outside their territory. On the main screen, a picture appeared of a man with brown hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no fancy decorations. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Aurora's Edge. His engine failed while carrying medical supplies to one of their outer colonies. He and his crew are now waiting at Kepler Station for rescue." The alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. Some whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal. "What makes this interesting," Zektar said, "is that Captain Morrison's ship uses technology we do not understand. Our best engineers looked at his broken engine. They could not figure out how it works. The materials are common metals and crystals, but they are put together in ways that should not be possible." Dr. Velmoth raised one of her arms. "I have studied the video recordings of Captain Morrison. He speaks our common language perfectly, but his brain patterns are unlike any species we have ever encountered. When he talks, our telepathic species get headaches. When he moves, our energy sensors show readings that make no sense." Captain Jorik laughed, but it sounded forced. "You are all afraid of one broken-down human ship?" "Not afraid," Zektar replied. "Curious. Captain Morrison and his crew have been polite and helpful. They answered our questions about their culture and history, but when we asked why humans stay isolated, they just smiled and said we would understand someday." The room grew quiet again. Everyone had heard stories about human politeness. They never threatened anyone. They never showed anger, they just quietly kept everyone away from their space. "Yesterday, something else happened," Zektar continued. 2 more human ships arrived at Kepler Station. They came to rescue Captain Morrison. One ship was commanded by Dr. Lisa Parker, a human scientist. The other was led by Commander Rick Hayes, a human military officer. New pictures appeared on the screen. Dr. Parker was a woman with red hair and green eyes. She wore a white coat over her blue uniform. Commander Hayes was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. His uniform was dark green with silver markings. Dr. Parker brought equipment to fix Captain Morrison's engine. Our scientists watched her work. She used tools that looked simple, but they did things our advanced technology cannot do. She repaired metal by touching it with her bare hands. She made broken computer parts work again just by looking at them. "That is impossible," said Ambassador Thexara, a being that looked like a walking crystal. No species can manipulate matter with thought alone. Commander Hayes was even more interesting, Zektar said. He carried no weapons, but our security sensors showed him as the most dangerous being on the station. When he walked past our guards, they felt sick and dizzy. Some reported hearing voices in their heads telling them to sleep. The images on the screen changed to show the 3 human ships leaving Kepler Station. They moved in perfect formation, like they were connected by invisible strings. Before they left, Dr. Parker made an offer. She said humans would be willing to share some of their medical knowledge if we promised to stop sending spy ships to their borders. She knew about every secret mission we have sent for the past 50 years. She knew the names of our spies, the types of ships we used, and the routes they took. Captain Jorik's scales turned pale. How could they know about classified military operations? That is what we need to find out, Zektar said. I propose we send an official diplomatic mission to the edge of human space. Not to spy or attack, but to ask for a meeting. If they refuse, at least we will have tried. If they agree, we might finally understand what makes humans so different. The vote was unanimous. Every species wanted to know the truth about humanity. Within hours, a fleet of 6 ships was prepared. Captain Jorik would lead the military escort. Dr. Velmoth would head the scientific team. Representatives from the major galactic powers would handle diplomacy. As the meeting ended, Ambassador Zektar looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans lived their quiet lives in their 12 star systems. Soon, the galaxy would finally learn what secrets they had been keeping for 3 centuries. The expedition fleet departed Nexus Prime the next morning, heading toward the edge of human space. None of them knew they were about to discover something that would change the galaxy forever. The alien fleet moved slowly through space toward the human border. 6 large ships carried the best diplomats, scientists, and soldiers the galaxy had to offer. Captain Jorik stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars ahead. His crew checked their weapons and shields every hour, but deep down he wondered if their technology would matter at all. Dr. Velmoth floated in her science lab, studying every scan they took of the region ahead. The space around human territory looked normal, but her instruments picked up strange energy patterns that made no sense. It was like the vacuum of space itself was alive and watching them. "Captain," called his communications officer, "we are approaching the human border system. Our charts call it Sol 7. Jorik nodded. "All ships reduce speed and power down weapons. We come in peace, just like we planned." But before anyone could respond, 3 small ships appeared out of nowhere. They had not been there a second before. No sensors had detected them coming. They just materialized like ghosts becoming solid. The human ships looked old and simple. Their hulls were gray metal with no fancy decorations. They had basic engines and simple weapon ports that seemed almost primitive compared to the alien fleet's advanced technology. Each ship was about the size of a large fighter, tiny compared to the massive alien vessels. "Unknown ships, this is Lieutenant Danny Cooper of the Human Defense Force," came a calm voice over the radio. "You have entered restricted space. Please, state your business and prepare to be escorted back to neutral territory." Captain Jorik activated his own communicator. "This is Captain Jorik of the Galactic Council Fleet. We come seeking peaceful contact with human leadership. We wish to establish diplomatic relations." There was a pause. Then Lieutenant Cooper spoke. Again. "I understand your intentions, Captain Jorik. However, no foreign vessels are permitted in human space without explicit authorization from Earth Command. This authorization has never been granted to any non-human species." Dr. Velmoth watched her scanners with growing confusion. The 3 human ships showed on her screens as barely functional. Their power levels were low, their shields were weak, and their weapons looked like toys. Yet something felt very wrong about the readings. "Lieutenant Cooper," Captain Jorik said, trying to sound reasonable, "we have come a long way for this meeting. Surely we can discuss this matter with your superiors." "I have already contacted my superiors, Captain. Commander Kate Sullivan is on her way with additional ships. In the meantime, I must ask you to power down your weapons and prepare to leave human space." Captain Jorik looked at his tactical officer, a Xanthari warrior named Vextar. "What do our sensors show about their capabilities?" Vextar's scales rippled with confusion. "Sir, Their ships appear almost defenseless. Minimal shielding, basic weapons, low power output. Our fleet could destroy all three in seconds. Then why do I feel like we are the ones in danger? Jorik muttered. Lieutenant Cooper's voice came again. Captain, I am reading elevated stress levels from your crew. Please try to remain calm. Strong. Emotions can cause problems in this region of space. Dr. Velmoth's compound eyes widened. How could the human know about their crew's emotional state? Her own sensors could not read biological signs through the alien ship's advanced shielding. Lieutenant Cooper, she said, activating her own communicator. This is Dr. Velmoth of the Galactic Science Council. May I ask how you are monitoring our crew's condition? Hello, Dr. Velmoth. I have read your research papers on xenobiology. Very impressive work. Lieutenant Cooper's voice carried genuine warmth. As for your question, it is not something I can easily explain. Let me just say that humans are very good at sensing the emotional state of other beings. Before anyone could respond, the human ships began to move. They did not use their engines. They simply glided through space like they were swimming through water instead of vacuum. As they moved, the alien fleet's weapon systems began to shut down one by one. What is happening? Captain Jorik shouted to his crew. Sir, our weapons are powering down on their own. Our shields are dropping to minimum levels. Our engines are reducing power, his tactical officer reported. I cannot stop it. The systems are not responding to commands. The same thing was happening to all 6 alien ships. Their most advanced technology was simply turning itself off and no one could figure out why. Do not be alarmed, Lieutenant Cooper said. Your ships are not damaged. Your systems will return to normal once you move back into neutral space. This is a safety feature of human territory. Dr. Velmoth stared at her instruments in disbelief. This is impossible. There is no known technology that can remotely disable our systems without some form of signal or weapon beam. We are detecting nothing. 2 more voices joined the conversation. This is Sergeant Amy Rodriguez and Corporal Steve Johnson. We are Lieutenant Cooper's wingmen. Captain Jorik, we have been monitoring your fleet since you left Nexus Prime. We know you come in peace, but we cannot allow you to enter our space. You have been watching us for days? Captain Jorik asked. How? Our ships have the best stealth and detection systems in the galaxy. Your technology is very impressive, Corporal Johnson said, but it works on principles that assume space is empty and lifeless. Human space is neither empty nor lifeless. Before anyone could ask what that meant, more human ships appeared. Not 3 or 4, but dozens. They surrounded the alien fleet in perfect formation. These ships were larger and looked more advanced, but they still seemed simple compared to alien technology. This is Commander Kate Sullivan, came a new voice, strong and confident. I apologize for the delay. I was in a meeting with our Xenology department about your arrival. Commander Sullivan, Dr. Velmoth said, we came here seeking understanding. Your people have remained isolated for 3 centuries. The galaxy wishes to know why. I understand your curiosity, Doctor. But the reasons for our isolation are not something we can explain in a brief conversation. What you call isolation, we call protection. Protection for whom? Captain Jorik asked. Protection for everyone, Commander Sullivan replied. Captain, I am going to ask you to return to neutral space. Your crews are beginning to show signs of exposure to human territory. Much longer here, and some of them may become permanently affected. As if to prove her point, several alien crew members on different ships began reporting headaches, dizziness, and strange dreams. Some claimed to hear voices speaking in languages they did not recognize. Others said they could sense the thoughts of their shipmates. What is happening to us? Dr. Velmoth whispered. You are experiencing what every alien species experiences in human space, Commander Sullivan said gently. Your minds are trying to adapt to an environment they were not designed for. We learned long ago that extended exposure can cause lasting psychological changes in non-human species. The alien fleet began moving back toward neutral space, their ships somehow guided by invisible forces. As they crossed back over the border, their weapons and shields came back online. The strange sensations affecting the crews faded away. Commander Sullivan? Captain Jorik called as the human ships prepared to leave. Will your people ever be willing to explain what we experienced today? Perhaps someday, Captain. When the galaxy is ready to understand that evolution takes many forms and not all of them are visible to instruments or explainable by science. The human ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the alien fleet alone in neutral space with more questions than answers. Back at Nexus Prime, the alien leaders were angry and confused. The peaceful contact mission had failed, and they still knew nothing about human capabilities. In secret meetings, some species decided they needed a different approach. Commander Crix of the Zenthari Special Forces met with Sindal, a Villani intelligence operative, in a hidden room deep inside the station. Both were experts at sneaking into places where they did not belong. The humans are hiding something important, Crix said, his reptilian eyes glowing in the dim light. My government wants to know what it is. Sindal nodded, her shape-shifting abilities allowing her to look like any species she chose. My people agree. We have developed new stealth technology that even human sensors cannot detect. We will find out their secrets. 3 days later, a small, invisible ship crossed into human space. It used technology that bent light around itself, making it completely unseen. The ship's engines were silent and its hull absorbed all forms of scanning beams. By all rights, it should have been undetectable. Commander Crix piloted the ship while Sindal monitored their surroundings. 2 other operatives, a Thakari named Kixtel and a Borvani called Merdok, prepared their recording equipment. They planned to observe a human colony world and finally learn the truth. Target acquired, Crix whispered into his communicator. Human colony world designated New Texas by their own charts. Population approximately 50,000. No orbital defenses visible. Uriao. Planet looked normal from space. It had blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds. Cities dotted the surface, connected by roads and transportation systems. Everything seemed peaceful and ordinary. Beginning descent, Crix reported. All stealth systems functioning perfectly. No indication we have been detected. They landed in a forest outside the main city and activated their personal cloaking devices. The 4 spies became invisible to all known forms of detection. They had used this technology to infiltrate dozens of species without ever being caught. The city of New Texas looked like something from an old Earth picture book. Houses had white fences and green lawns. Children played in parks while adults went about their daily business. Markets sold food and clothes just like any normal civilization. But as the spies watched more closely, they began to see things that made no sense. A farmer named Bill Turner was working in his fields, but he was not using any machines. He pointed at the soil and it began to turn itself over, preparing for planting. He gestured at seeds and they flew through the air, planting themselves in perfect rows. Water rose from a nearby well without any pumps and spread across the field in a gentle rain. Are you recording this? Crix whispered to his team. Yes, but the instruments show nothing unusual, Kixtel replied. According to our scanners, the farmer is just standing in an empty field doing nothing. In town, a teacher named Mary Collins was working with a group of children in a schoolyard. The children were playing a game that involved making small rocks float in the air. They laughed as they moved the stones around each other in complex patterns like a dance performed in mid-air. The children are manipulating matter with their minds, Sindal reported. But our sensors detect no energy, signatures, no technology, no explanation for what we are seeing. An engineer named Tony Martinez was working on a construction project. He needed to move large metal beams into place, but instead of using cranes or machines, he simply looked at them. The beams rose into the air and positioned themselves exactly where they needed to be. Tony smiled and moved on to the next task. This is impossible, Merdok muttered. No species can move objects with thought alone. There must be hidden technology we cannot detect. Old Pete Williams, a man with gray hair and kind eyes, was tending to his garden. The plants around him grew faster as he walked past them. Flowers bloomed and vegetables ripened as if months were passing in minutes. He hummed a quiet song and the plants seemed to sway to the music. The spies followed him, staying invisible and silent. But as they got closer, Pete stopped humming and turned around. "You know, it is not polite to spy on people," he said, looking directly at their invisible forms. "Why do not you come out and introduce yourselves properly?" The four operatives froze in terror. Their cloaking technology was perfect. No known sensors could penetrate it. Yet this old human farmer was staring right at them. "Do not be afraid," Pete said gently. "I am not going to hurt you. But your presence is making the plants nervous. They can sense your confusion and fear." "Impossible," Crix whispered, but his voice carried clearly to Pete's ears. "Not impossible, just different," Pete replied. "You see, humans experience the world in ways that your instruments cannot measure. We feel the life energy in all things. Your cloaking devices hide you from machines, but they cannot hide you from awareness itself." A construction worker named Carlos Lopez approached from down the street. Behind him walked Nancy Adams, an elderly woman who had once been a pilot. They were not running or acting like they were responding to an alarm. They just walked over casually, as if meeting invisible aliens was something that happened every day. "Hello there," Nancy said warmly. "Welcome to New Texas. I apologize for the informal reception, but we do not get many visitors. Are you here on official business or just curious?" "How can you see us?" Sindel asked, her voice shaking with disbelief. "How can you not see yourselves?" Carlos replied with a smile. "You are standing right there, thinking your thoughts, feeling your emotions. You might as well be shouting your presence to anyone who knows how to listen." More humans began to gather around the invisible spies. A woman pushing a baby carriage stopped to watch. Children playing in a nearby park came over to see what was happening. A man walking his dog paused to observe the scene. "Please do not be alarmed," Nancy said. "We mean you no harm, but your stealth technology creates a kind of blindness that is very obvious to human senses. It is like watching someone walk around with their eyes closed, bumping into things they cannot see." "What are you?" Murdoch asked, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. "We are humans," Pete said simply. "We are what we have always been. The question is not what we are, but what you are ready to understand about the nature of consciousness itself." An 8-year-old boy named Bobby Clark ran up to the group. He looked at the invisible aliens with bright, curious eyes and asked, "Why are you hiding? Nobody here is scary. Do you want to see my pet rabbit? His name is Buttons, and he can do tricks." Before anyone could answer, Bobby reached out and touched Sindal's cloaked arm. The moment his small hand made contact, her invisibility flickered and failed. She became visible to everyone around them. "Oops," Bobby said with a giggle. "Sorry about that. Sometimes I forget that other people's toys are fragile." One by one, the other spies became visible as more humans approached them. Their perfect stealth technology, developed over centuries and tested against every known detection method, was completely useless against human perception. "I think," Nancy said kindly, "it is time we had a proper conversation about why you are really here. Mayor Frank Davis is expecting you for dinner. He has been waiting since you entered our system 3 days ago." Mayor Frank Davis sat behind a simple wooden desk in his office. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes. The 4 alien spies sat across from him, no longer invisible, drinking coffee from ceramic mugs. Outside, the window. Children played in the park while their parents watched and smiled. "I apologize for the informal capture," Frank said with a warm smile. "We knew you were coming long before your ship entered our system. We have been preparing for this conversation for quite some time." Commander Crix shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "How did you know? Our stealth technology is perfect. We have used it successfully on hundreds of worlds." "Because, Commander, your technology hides you from machines and instruments. It does not hide you from minds that can feel your presence across space." Frank took a sip of his coffee. "Every human in this city knew you were here the moment you landed. We felt your curiosity, your fear, and your confusion." Sindal leaned forward. "You are saying that humans can read minds?" "Not exactly," Frank replied. "We can sense emotions, intentions, and life energy. When someone approaches with hostile intent, we feel it. When someone is afraid, we know it. When someone is curious, like you four, we can tell from many miles away. Dr. Helen Carter entered the office carrying a thick book and several old photographs. She was a woman in her 40s, with brown hair and kind eyes. She taught history at the local school and served as the town's record keeper. "I brought the materials you requested, Frank," she said, setting the items on the desk. "The full history of human development over the past 3 centuries. She turned to the alien spies with a gentle smile. "I understand you have questions about why we live in isolation. The answer is not simple, but it is important for your species to understand." Helen opened the book to a page filled with old pictures. The images showed humans from 300 years ago. They looked exactly like modern humans, but something in their eyes was different. They looked tired and confused. 3 centuries ago, humans were much like your species, Helen began. "We used technology to solve our problems. We built machines to help us work. We relied on instruments to understand the world around us, then something changed." She turned to another page showing newspaper headlines and scientific reports. The words spoke of strange events happening all over Earth. People began reporting that they could sense other people's emotions. Children started moving objects without touching them. Some humans claimed they could see energy patterns around living things. "We called it the awakening," Helen continued. "Within 50 years, every human on Earth and our early colonies developed what your species would call psychic abilities. We could influence matter with focused thought. We could sense the emotions and intentions of others. We could feel the life energy in plants, animals, and even the planet itself." Kixtel, the Thakari scientist, clicked his mandibles nervously. "This is impossible. No species evolves that quickly. Genetic changes take millions of years." "You are correct," Helen said. "This was not genetic evolution. It was consciousness evolution. Human minds learned to connect directly with the quantum field that underlies all reality. We began to perceive and interact with the universe in ways that your instruments cannot measure." Frank picked up one of the old photographs. It showed a group of humans standing with various alien species. Both groups looked happy and friendly. "This picture was taken during our last attempt at normal galactic contact, about 250 years ago." He set down another photograph. This one showed the same aliens, but they looked sick and frightened. Some were holding their heads as if in pain. Others stared into space with empty expressions. "This was taken 3 days later," Frank said quietly. "The alien visitors had been exposed to human consciousness for too long. Their minds could not handle the constant input of human thoughts and emotions. Some went insane. Others fell into comas. Several died from the psychological trauma." Sindal stared at the pictures in horror. "You killed them with your minds?" "Not intentionally," Helen replied sadly. "Humans at that time could not control their abilities. We broadcast our thoughts and emotions constantly. For species that evolved to have private minds, the experience was overwhelming. Imagine if you could suddenly hear the thoughts of everyone around you all the time, whether you wanted to or not. That is why we chose isolation," Frank added. "Not because we feared other species, but because we feared harming them. Every time aliens visited human space, they became sick from exposure to our consciousness. We decided it was better to stay separate until we learned to control our abilities." Carlos Lopez knocked on the office door and entered. Behind him came Nancy Adams and Pete Williams. They had been asked to join the meeting as examples of how human abilities worked in daily life. "Carlos here is our best example of matter manipulation," Frank said. "Carlos, would you show our guests how you work?" Carlos picked up a broken pen from Frank's desk. He held it in his palm and focused his attention on it. The pen began to change shape, its plastic flowing like liquid until it became a perfect, miniature sculpture of a bird. Then the plastic hardened again, creating a detailed work of art. "I do not use machines or tools," Carlos explained. "I simply focus my intention on what I want the material to become. The atoms rearrange themselves according to my will." Nancy stepped forward. "I was a pilot for 40 years before I retired. Human ships do not work the way alien ships work. Our engines are guided by the crew's collective consciousness. We do not navigate by instruments alone. We feel our way through space, sensing gravitational fields and energy patterns directly. Pete smiled and gestured toward the window. The plants in my garden grow so well because I share my life energy with them. I can feel their needs and provide what they require. It is not magic or technology. It is simply how humans interact with the living world. But how? Murdoch asked desperately. How can consciousness affect physical matter? Helen opened the book to its final chapter. We spent 2 centuries studying that question. What we learned is that consciousness is not produced by the brain, as most species believe. Consciousness is a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. The brain is simply an antenna that receives and focuses consciousness. Human brains, Frank continued, evolved to be very sensitive antennas. We can receive and transmit consciousness more clearly than most species. This allows us to influence quantum fields directly, which in turn affects physical matter. Your species, Helen said gently, are not wrong to rely on technology. You simply evolved along a different path. You developed tools to extend your physical capabilities. We developed minds to extend our conscious capabilities. Commander Crick sat in stunned silence for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "Are we in danger just by being here?" "Some danger, yes," Frank admitted. Extended exposure to human consciousness can cause permanent changes in alien minds. That is why we must send you back to your people soon. But we wanted you to understand the truth first. The galaxy believes we are hiding superweapons or advanced technology, Nancy said. The reality is much simpler and much more complex. We are hiding our evolution into something your species are not ready to encounter safely. What happens now? Sindal asked. Frank stood up and walked to the window. Below, children played while their parents watched. Everyone looked peaceful and happy, unaware that their very existence was reshaping the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be intelligent life. Now, Frank said, you return to your people with the truth. And perhaps if your species are ready, we can begin to teach others how to develop their own conscious abilities safely. The universe is much stranger and more wonderful than any of us imagined. 3 weeks later, the biggest meeting in galactic history took place aboard Nexus Prime. Representatives from every known species filled the Great Council chamber. At the center of the room sat 4 very different groups of beings. The alien spies who had visited New Texas sat at one table, still recovering from their experience. Commander Crix looked older and more thoughtful than before. Sindal kept staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Both Kixtel and Murdoch had requested extended medical leave to process what they had learned. At another table sat the human delegation. Ambassador Patricia Moore led the group, a woman with silver hair and calm blue eyes. Admiral Kevin Scott sat beside her, a tall man with a gentle manner that seemed odd for a military leader. Dr. Angela Foster completed the human team, a young scientist who specialized in consciousness research. The third table held the galactic leaders who had sent the spy mission. They whispered among themselves, trying to understand reports that seemed impossible. The fourth table was reserved for the medical teams that had examined the returning spies. Ambassador Zektar called the meeting to order. His usual confidence was replaced by obvious nervousness. We have gathered to hear the report of our reconnaissance mission to human space. What they discovered will change how we understand intelligent life in the galaxy. Commander Crick stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was different than before, softer, more thoughtful. Honored delegates, we went to human space expecting to find hidden weapons or secret technology. What we found was much more significant. We found a species that has evolved beyond the physical limitations that define the rest of us. Murmurs filled the chamber. Several representatives demanded immediate explanation. Dr. Velmoth, who had been studying the spy mission reports, activated her communicator. The evidence is overwhelming. Humans possess abilities that operate outside known physical laws. They can manipulate matter through conscious intent. They can sense emotions and thoughts across vast distances. They can affect the operation of our most advanced technology simply by being present. Ambassador Moore stood gracefully. If I may address the council, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the huge chamber. Commander Crix and his team have experienced something that took humanity 2 centuries to understand. We have evolved to interact directly with the quantum field that underlies all physical reality. That is impossible, shouted Ambassador Thexara. Consciousness cannot affect quantum mechanics, Dr. Foster smiled gently. With respect, Ambassador, your statement reflects the limitations of current galactic science. Your species developed along technological paths because you believe consciousness is separate from physical reality. Humans learned that consciousness and physics are part of the same unified system. Admiral Scott activated a small device on the table. Immediately, every weapon system in Nexus Prime powered down. Life support continued working, but all military technologies simply stopped functioning. How did you do that? Demanded Captain Jorik. I asked the systems to rest, Admiral Scott replied simply. Most technology responds to conscious intention when approached correctly. Your computers and weapons are not truly separate from the minds that created them. The device was turned off and all systems returned to normal. The demonstration had lasted only 30 seconds, but its implications terrified the alien delegates. Are you threatening us? Asked a Borvani representative. Never, Ambassador Moore said firmly. We are showing you why we maintain isolation. Human consciousness affects alien technology and alien minds in ways that can be harmful. We chose separation to protect you, not to threaten you. Sindal spoke for the first time since returning from New Texas. Her voice was quiet but clear. During our time on the human world, I began to experience their consciousness directly. I could feel the emotions of humans around me. I could sense the life energy in plants and animals. For 3 days, I lived as humans live every moment of their existence. She paused, struggling with words to describe her experience. It was beautiful and terrifying. My mind was not designed for such awareness. I nearly lost my sanity from the overwhelming input. The humans helped me limit the experience, but I will never be the same. Dr. Foster nodded sympathetically. This is why we cannot have normal diplomatic relations. Prolonged exposure to human consciousness causes permanent changes in alien neural patterns. Some species adapt better than others, but all are affected. What do you propose? Asked Ambassador Zektar. Admiral Scott stood and gestured to a holographic display that appeared above the table. It showed plans for a new type of space station. We propose limited contact through specially designed facilities, he said. These stations would be located in neutral space, equipped with consciousness-dampening fields that allow safe interaction between humans and other species. The hologram showed humans working alongside various alien species, but separated by invisible barriers that prevented psychic contact. Additionally, Ambassador Moore continued, we offer training programs for species that wish to develop their own consciousness abilities. The path we took was accidental and dangerous. We can teach others to evolve more safely. A young Thakari scientist named Bel Tar raised her arm. Are you saying that other species can learn these abilities? Dr. Foster smiled warmly. Every intelligent species has the potential for consciousness evolution. You simply evolved to express it through technology, rather than direct mental ability. With proper training, many of you could learn to perceive reality as humans do. What would be the cost of such training? Asked a practical-minded Zenthari delegate. No cost except time and effort, Ambassador Moore replied. Consciousness cannot be bought or sold. It can only be developed through patient practice and understanding. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species feared human abilities and wanted stronger isolation. Others were fascinated and demanded immediate access to consciousness training. A few suggested that humans should suppress their abilities to allow normal galactic contact. Finally, old Ambassador Zektar called for order. We will vote on the human proposal. All in favor of establishing limited contact through protected facilities? The vote was close, but it passed. 31 species voted in favor, 16 voted against. 6 months later, the first human-alien contact station opened at Haven Point, a neutral location between human and galactic space. Captain Jake Morrison, the merchant whose broken ship had started this entire process, became the station's first human trade coordinator. Dr. Angela Foster established the Consciousness Development Institute on the station. Her first students included Sindal, who had volunteered to be a test subject for cross-species consciousness training, and young Beltar, whose scientific curiosity overcame her species' natural caution. The early results were promising. Several alien species showed natural aptitude for basic consciousness awareness. A few even learned to sense emotions in others or influence simple objects through focused thought. But the most significant change was not in abilities gained. It was in understanding achieved. For the first time in galactic history, different species began to comprehend that intelligence could take forms they had never imagined. Commander Crix, now recovered from his experience, served as a liaison between the galactic military and human defense forces. He often stood on the observation deck of Haven Point, watching humans and aliens work together in their protected environments. They were right, he told visiting dignitaries. The galaxy was not ready to understand what humanity had become, but perhaps we are learning. In human space, life continued as it always had. Children played games that involved floating objects and sensing each other's emotions. Adults worked in harmony with their environment, shaping matter through will and intention. The isolation that had lasted 3 centuries was finally beginning to end. But it was ending slowly, carefully, with protection for everyone involved. Because humans had learned the most important lesson of consciousness evolution, that great power required even greater responsibility. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the center of the council chamber, feeling the weight of 1,000 hostile eyes upon her. The chamber was massive, built to accommodate 12 different alien species, each more ancient than humanity could imagine. Above her, the crystalline form of High Counselor Vexthan pulsed with cold blue light. The being had lived for 3,000 years and looked at Chen the way a human might look at an insect. The human speaks. Vexthan's voice echoed through translation devices. We shall listen, though your words change nothing. Chen took a deep breath. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years now, fighting every day for humanity's right to exist as equals. It never got easier. The other species saw humans as children playing with matches, dangerous and stupid in equal measure. Honorable Council, Chen began, keeping her voice steady. Humanity requests permission to establish 3 new colony worlds in the Outer Sigma region. We have surveyed these planets. They are uninhabited and rich in resources. Our population needs room to grow. A deep rumble came from the Korath section. Supreme Marshal Thexvalon rose from his seat, his massive body covered in thick scales that had seen 1,000 battles. The Korath had ruled their empire for 10,000 years. They did not like newcomers. Denied, Thexvalon's voice boomed. Humans expand too quickly. You have been part of this council for only 50 years. 50. My species had not yet left our home system in such short time. You demand more and more, always pushing boundaries. This ends now. Chen felt her heart sink, but she kept her face calm. Marshal, we have followed every rule. We have paid every tax. We have contributed to Council defense forces. What more must we do to be treated fairly? The crystalline High Counselor pulsed brighter. Humanity must learn patience. You must learn your place. We have decided. The Council will vote on new restrictions for the human species. You will surrender half your military fleet. You will accept observers on all your worlds. You will stop expanding for the next century. The chamber fell silent. Chen felt ice in her veins. This was worse than she had feared. You cannot be serious. You are asking us to become prisoners in our own territory. We are telling you what will happen, Vexthan said. The vote will proceed. You may leave now, Ambassador. This does not concern you anymore. Chen wanted to scream. She wanted to rage at the injustice. But she was a diplomat. She bowed her head slightly and walked out of the chamber with as much dignity as she could manage. As the doors closed behind her, she heard the voting begin. She did not need to stay to know the result. In her private quarters, Chen activated the secure quantum link to Earth. The face of Admiral James Okonkwo appeared on the screen. The old military man looked tired. He always looked tired these days. They voted against us, didn't they? He asked. Worse. They are voting right now to strip us of our fleet and put observers on every human world. James, they are going to cage us. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. How long do we have? They gave us 1 Earth week to comply. 7 days to surrender everything we have built. And if we refuse? Chen looked directly at the camera. Then they will use force. Thexvalon made that very clear. They call it correction. I call it war. Okonkwo nodded slowly. I will inform the President. Chen, come home. There is nothing more you can do there. Across the galaxy, on a military station orbiting Mars, Captain Sarah Ramirez watched the news with her command crew. The feed was official now. The Galactic Council had voted. Humanity had 7 days to comply or face military action. They are actually going to do it, her first officer said quietly. They are going to attack us. Ramirez stood up from her chair. Then we prepare. All ships full combat readiness. I want every weapon system checked. I want every shield generator at maximum power, and I want our people ready to fight. Captain, her tactical officer spoke up. We cannot win against the entire Council fleet. They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 300 combat-ready vessels. I know the numbers, Lieutenant, Ramirez said sharply, but we are not going to surrender. If they want our freedom, they will have to kill us to take it. Deep in a secret research facility on Europa, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stared at rows of weapon systems that humanity had promised never to build. They were weapons banned by galactic law, weapons that the Council species found horrifying and barbaric. But humanity had built them anyway, hidden away just in case. Doctor, her assistant said nervously, we just received the activation codes. Protocol Ragnarok is now live. Tanaka felt sick. She had hoped this day would never come. These weapons were designed for one purpose only: total war. No mercy, no limits, no rules. She thought about her daughter, safe at home on Earth, playing in the garden. She thought about all the children across human space who deserve to grow up free. Begin the deployment sequence, she said quietly. If they bring war to our doorstep, we will show them what war truly means. 7 days passed like a countdown to doomsday. The Council gave humanity chance after chance to surrender. Each time, Earth's answer was the same: no. On the 7th day, Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UNSC flagship Indomitable, Captain Ramirez at his side. They watched the sensor screens with grim expressions. The entire human fleet had gathered near Earth. Every ship they had ready for the impossible fight ahead. Admiral, the sensor officer called out. Slip space ruptures detected. Multiple signatures. Thousands of them. The view screen lit up with warnings. One by one, the ships of the Galaxy fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. They came in waves, each wave larger than the entire human fleet. 10,000 warships from 12 different species, all converging on human territory. Supreme Marshal Thexvalon's face appeared on every communication screen across human space. The old Korath looked almost sad. Humans of Earth, he began, you have refused the wisdom of the Council. You have chosen pride over peace. Your species is too dangerous to be allowed to continue on this path. By the authority of the Galactic Council, I hereby sentence humanity to correction. Your civilization will be reduced to a pre-industrial state. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your ships will be scrapped. Your colonies will be abandoned. This is mercy. We could choose extinction, but we are not monsters. Surrender now and casualties will be minimized. Resist and you will be crushed. The transmission ended. For a moment, there was total silence across the human fleet. Then Admiral Okonkwo spoke. His voice broadcast to every human ship, every human colony, every human listening across the stars. All ships, battle stations. Today they learn what humans are made of. Today we show them that we will never kneel. Today we fight for our freedom or we die trying. For Earth, for humanity, for our future. The Galaxy fleet began its approach. Humanity's tiny fleet moved forward to meet them. The first shots would be fired within the hour, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first missiles struck the outer colonies without warning. On New Perth, a mining colony of 2 million souls, the sky turned red as orbital bombardment began. The colonists had 12 minutes to reach the shelters. Most did not make it. Captain Sarah Ramirez watched the sensor feed from her ship and felt rage burning in her chest. They are targeting civilians first, her tactical officer said, voice shaking with anger. The mining stations, the agricultural colonies. They are killing everyone. They want to break our will, Admiral Okonkwo's voice came through the fleet channel. They think if they hit us hard enough, fast enough, we will beg for mercy. All ships engage defensive pattern Delta. Protect what we can. The human fleet split into defensive groups rushing to intercept the Council forces. But the numbers were impossible. For every human ship there were 30 alien vessels. The Council had brought overwhelming force and they used it without hesitation. Ramirez's ship, the UNSC Indomitable, led a squadron toward a Korath battle group that was heading for the Mars shipyards. Mars was humanity's greatest military production facility. If it fell, humanity lost its ability to build new ships. All weapons, fire at will, Ramirez commanded. Target their flagship. The Indomitable unleashed everything it had. Railguns fired solid slugs at incredible speeds. Missiles streaked across space, leaving trails of light. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The Korath flagship's shields flared bright blue as it absorbed the attack. Then it fired back. The return fire was devastating. Korath plasma weapons, refined over 10,000 years of warfare, punched through the Indomitable's shields like they were paper. Ramirez grabbed her chair as the ship shook violently. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12.
Shield generators failing.
We cannot take another hit like that. Around them, human ships were dying. The cruiser Valiant exploded in a ball of fire. The destroyer Hawk broke in half, its crew venting into space. The frigate Damascus tried to ram a Korath ship in a desperate final act, but was vaporized before it could reach its target. All ships fall back, Okonkwo ordered, his voice heavy with grief. We cannot hold this position. Retreat to Rally Point Gamma. Mars shipyards initiate self-destruct protocol. Do not let them take it intact. Ramirez wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight, but she knew the Admiral was right. They were being slaughtered. The surviving human ships turned and ran, using every trick they knew to escape. Behind them, the Mars shipyards exploded in a series of massive blasts, taking a dozen pursuing Korath ships with them. On Earth, billions of people watched the sky with terror. The Council fleet had reached orbit. Ships the size of cities hung above every major population center. Then the bombardment began. New York vanished in nuclear fire. Tokyo, London, Mumbai, São Paulo, all burning. The defense satellites fought back, but they were swept aside like toys. Luna Base, humanity's oldest off-world settlement, went dark as enemy troops stormed through the corridors. In underground bunkers, President Maria Santos watched the death toll climb. 3 billion people dead in 48 hours, 3 billion souls gone in the blink of an eye. She felt numb, disconnected from reality. This could not be happening. This could not be real. Madam President, her military advisor said quietly, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 colony governors. They want to stop the killing. Santos looked at him with hollow eyes. Tell them to do what they must to save their people. I will not order anyone to die needlessly. And Earth, Madam President? The Council is demanding your personal surrender. They want you to broadcast a message telling all humans to lay down their arms. Santos stood up slowly. She walked to the window of the bunker, looking at a screen showing the devastated surface above. The planet she loved, the home of humanity, was burning. No, she said simply. We do not surrender. Not while I draw breath. In the asteroid belt, the surviving human fleet regrouped. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the damaged Indomitable, counting his losses. Of 300 ships, only 83 remained combat capable. They faced an enemy of 10,000. Admiral, Captain Ramirez approached him, her uniform torn and blood-stained. What do we do now? We cannot fight them head-on. We cannot protect our colonies. Earth is under siege. We have lost. Okonkwo turned to look at her. The old man's eyes were hard as steel. We have not lost, Captain. We have only just begun to fight. Sir, I do not understand. We are beaten. Our cities are in ruins. Billions are dead. How can we possibly... They think they have won, Okonkwo interrupted. They think we will surrender now. They think this is over. But they made a mistake, Captain. A fatal mistake, and what mistake? They left us alive. They should have killed every last human in the first strike. They should have destroyed us completely. Burned every world, killed every person. But they tried to be merciful. They tried to follow their rules of war. Now they will learn that humans do not play by rules. He activated his command console and entered a long sequence of codes. Across human space, hidden facilities came online. On Europa, Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched as weapon systems powered up. In deep space caches, automated systems began moving toward their targets. On occupied colony worlds, resistance cells received activation orders. Initiate Protocol Ragnarok, Okonkwo said clearly. Authorization Okonkwo, Alpha 77 Delta. All systems activate. God help us all. On the occupied colony of New Perth, a Korath patrol moved through the ruins of the city. The soldiers were bored. The fighting was over. Humans had proven to be weak, easily defeated. One of the soldiers kicked at debris looking for anything valuable. Then the ground beneath them exploded. Buried human mines, activated remotely, tore the patrol apart. Before the Korath could react, human guerrillas emerged from hiding, firing weapons, throwing grenades, then disappearing back into the ruins. This happened on 100 worlds simultaneously. In orbit above Earth, a Council medical ship suddenly lost all power. Then another. Then 5 more. The ships went dark, floating dead in space. Human hackers, using programs developed in secret over years, had infiltrated the Council's computer networks. They were not trying to destroy the ships. They were trying to create fear and confusion. It worked. Supreme Marshal Thex Valon stood on his flagship, reading reports with growing disbelief. Humans were attacking everywhere at once. They were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like cornered animals, using tactics that the Council found shocking and barbaric. Suicide attacks, chemical weapons, biological warfare, computer viruses, booby traps in their own cities. These humans are insane, his second-in-command said with horror. They have no honor. They do not follow the rules of war. Thex Valon felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. They do not care about honor. They only care about survival, and that makes them far more dangerous than we realized. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Okonkwo watched the reports flow in. Human counterattacks were causing chaos among the Council forces. It was not enough to win. Not yet. But it was enough to make them pause. Enough to make them doubt. He turned to address his remaining fleet. They came here thinking they would teach us a lesson. They came here thinking they were superior. Now we teach them something. We teach them that humanity does not surrender. We teach them that attacking Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. And we teach them that from this moment forward, this is total war. No mercy, no rules, no surrender. We fight until we win or until we are extinct. Are you with me? Every single officer on every remaining ship answered as one. Yes, Admiral. Then let us show them what humans are truly capable of. Prepare for Operation Vendetta. We strike at their supply lines, their colonies, their homeworlds. If they want war, we will give them war like they have never seen before. As the human fleet prepared to move, a message went out across all human frequencies. It was simple, direct, and terrifying in its promise. If they wanted us extinct, they should have finished it. Now it is our turn. The Council forces thought they had won. Supreme Marshal Thex Valon ordered his fleet to consolidate their positions. Secure the conquered human colonies and prepare for final occupation of Earth. It was a routine operation, the kind his species had performed 1,000 times before. Conquer, occupy, integrate. Simple. Then humanity showed them how wrong they were. The first convoy never reached its destination. 20 supply ships carrying food, medicine, and equipment for occupation forces simply vanished. No distress calls. No wreckage, just gone. Search teams found the ships 3 days later, drifting in space. Every Council soldier aboard was dead, killed by a colorless, odorless gas that had been pumped through the ventilation systems. The human crew had all escaped in the life pods. They killed prisoners? Thex Valon said with shock. We treated those human crew members well. We followed the rules of war. His intelligence officer looked uncomfortable. Marshal, the human crew were not prisoners. They volunteered. They knew the gas would kill everyone. They sacrificed themselves to destroy our supplies. Thex Valon stared at the report. What kind of species killed themselves just to hurt the enemy? What kind of madness was this? The attacks continued and escalated. On the occupied colony of Theta 5, Council forces settled into their garrison. That night, the entire water supply was poisoned. Not fatally, but enough to make every soldier violently ill. While they were sick and unable to fight, human resistance fighters struck, stealing weapons and equipment before vanishing into the wilderness. On Zeta Station, a seemingly friendly human janitor spent 3 months cleaning Council facilities. Then one day, he walked into the command center and detonated explosives hidden in his cleaning cart. He died, along with 30 Council officers. The station's command structure collapsed overnight. Captain Sarah Ramirez led a strike force of 15 small ships against a council fuel depot. They did not fight fair. They disguised their ships as debris, drifting close to the depot before powering up and firing at point-blank range. The depot exploded, taking 47 council ships with it. Ramirez's force lost 3 ships, but she considered it an excellent trade. The council species were horrified by human tactics. The Vexithari, crystalline beings who valued logic and order above all else, could not understand the chaos humans created. The elegant seraph, who fought with honor and nobility, found human methods disgusting and barbaric, but most disturbing were the weapons humans used. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had spent years developing weapons that the Galactic Council had banned as too horrible for civilized warfare. Now she unleashed them without hesitation, nanomachines that could dismantle metal at the molecular level, turning ships into dust. Bioweapons designed specifically for each council species, non-lethal but incapacitating. Computer viruses that could infiltrate any system, no matter how secure. The Vexithari suffered most from the computer attacks. As a networked species that shared a collective consciousness, they were vulnerable to digital warfare. Human hackers found ways to inject false information into their network, causing confusion and panic. Some Vexithari began seeing hallucinations, their crystalline minds unable to distinguish real data from fake. "This is not war," High Counselor Vexithon complained to Thexvalon. "This is terrorism. This is barbarism. Humans do not fight with honor." "No," Thexvalon agreed grimly. "They fight to win, and they are very good at it." Admiral Okonkwo studied the tactical maps with satisfaction. The council fleet was bleeding from 1,000 small cuts. They had the numbers, they had superior technology, but they did not have the will for this kind of fight. They were used to quick, clean wars between civilized species. They were not prepared for an enemy that refused to quit, refused to follow rules, and refused to value their own lives above victory. "The convoy system is working," Ramirez reported. "Every council supply line is under constant attack. Their forces on occupied worlds are running low on everything." "Good," Okonkwo nodded. "Continue the harassment. I want them paranoid and exhausted. I want them to fear every shadow. Now let us discuss Operation Hellfire." He pulled up a star chart showing the Korath supply nexus at Kragnar Station. It was the main hub for the entire invasion force, a massive station orbiting a gas giant, heavily defended by hundreds of ships and thousands of defense platforms. "We cannot take it in a straight fight," Ramirez said. "We do not have the firepower." "We are not going to fight it," Okonkwo smiled coldly. "We are going to destroy it, Dr. Tanaka, if you please." Tanaka stepped forward, displaying schematics for a weapon that made even the human officers uncomfortable. "We call it a quantum compressed fusion device. Essentially, it is a hydrogen bomb compressed to the size of a baseball using quantum manipulation. The explosion is significant." "How significant?" someone asked. "It will destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers. The station, the defense platforms, every ship in the area. Nothing will survive." "How do we deliver it?" Ramirez asked. "Their sensors will detect any ship carrying a weapon that powerful." "We do not use a ship," Tanaka said. "We use a person." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she meant. "A suicide mission." "I will do it," a young lieutenant spoke up immediately. "My family died on New York. I volunteer." "So do I," another officer said. "My children were on Luna base." Within minutes, 30 officers had volunteered. Okonkwo felt pride and sorrow in equal measure. This was what humanity had become, willing to sacrifice everything for survival. "Lieutenant Chen," he chose a young woman with fierce eyes. "You will have this honor. May your sacrifice save millions." 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Maria Chen piloted a small civilian shuttle toward Kragnar Station. She broadcast distress signals claiming engine failure. The Korath, following their protocols for handling civilians, allowed her to dock for repairs. They never detected the quantum device hidden in her body, surgically implanted and shielded. Chen walked through the station, marveling at its size. Thousands of council soldiers moved through the corridors, confident in their victory. She felt no hatred for them. They were just following orders like soldiers everywhere. But her family was dead, and humanity needed to survive. She reached the station's main reactor level and activated the device. She had 10 seconds. She used them to look at a photo of her parents killed in the bombardment of New York. "For Earth," she whispered. The explosion tore reality apart. Kragnar Station, 2,000 council ships, and 300 defense platforms ceased to exist. The shockwave could be detected 3 star systems away. It was the largest single loss the council forces had suffered in the entire war. Supreme Marshal Thex Valon watched the tactical display in his command center as Kragnar's signal simply vanished. Gone. 2,000 ships, tens of thousands of soldiers gone in an instant. And he knew how it had happened. A human suicide bomber. What kind of enemy does this? He said to no one in particular. What kind of species values death over surrender? His second-in-command had no answer. None of them did. They had fought hundreds of wars, conquered dozens of species, but they had never encountered anyone like humans. Most species, when faced with overwhelming force, surrendered. That was logical. That was rational. That was civilized. Humans were not civilized. Not by council standards. They were wild, unpredictable, and absolutely terrifying when cornered. Reports flooded in from across council space. Human raiders were striking deep into their territory now, hitting targets light years from Earth. A human strike force destroyed a Seraph colony ship carrying 1 million civilians. When the council complained about the attack on non-combatants, Admiral Okonkwo's response was broadcast across the galaxy. You bombed our cities. You killed our civilians. You started total war. Now you complain when we fight back using your own tactics? This is war, real war, not your civilized games. We will use every weapon, every tactic, every strategy to survive. If you do not like it, you should have left us alone. The council species began arguing among themselves. The Seraph wanted to withdraw, calling the war unwinnable. The Vexthari demanded the complete extinction of humanity as the only safe solution. The smaller species were quietly pulling their forces back, unwilling to sacrifice more for what seemed like a losing cause. Only the Korath remained committed. Thexavalon would not admit defeat. Could not admit defeat. His species had never lost a war in their entire history. He would not be the first marshal to fail, but even he was beginning to understand the truth. Humanity could not be conquered, not unless the Council was willing to kill every single human, burn every human world, and commit complete genocide. And even then, he was not sure they could succeed. Humans were too spread out, too stubborn, too willing to die rather than submit. On Earth, in the ruins of what had once been Geneva, Admiral Okonkwo stood with Captain Ramirez and Dr. Tanaka. They looked at the devastated planet, at the billions of graves, at the scars that would take centuries to heal. We are winning, Ramirez said quietly. The Council is losing their will to fight. Yes, Okonkwo agreed. But at what cost? We have become monsters to defeat monsters.
What happens when this is over?
What will we be? Tanaka had no answer. None of them did. They had done terrible things to survive, things that would haunt humanity forever, but they would survive. That was all that mattered now. We finish this, Okonkwo said with finality. The galaxy fleet was dying. Not from one massive battle, but from 1,000 small wounds that would not stop bleeding. Every day brought new reports of attacks, sabotage, and casualties. The Council species had never experienced war like this before, and their unity was fracturing under the pressure. In the Council chamber, arguments raged. The Seraph ambassador stood with her wings spread wide, a gesture of extreme agitation among her species. We must negotiate, she insisted. This war cannot be won. The humans will fight forever. They do not care about losses. They do not value their own lives. How do we defeat an enemy like that? We destroy them completely. High Counselor Vexthon's crystalline form pulsed red with anger. We should have done this from the beginning. Total extermination. It is the only way. And become the monsters we claim they are? The Seraph shot back. My people will not participate in genocide. We withdraw our forces immediately. If the Seraph withdraw, so do the Lixian, another ambassador announced. Our casualties are unacceptable. We joined this council for protection, not to die fighting mad humans. Supreme Marshal Thex Valon listened to the chaos with growing frustration. His own species, the Korath, had lost more than half their fleet. The military machine that had conquered a quarter of the galaxy was being beaten by a species that barely had faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. But the worst news was yet to come. Marshal, his intelligence officer, approached nervously. We have reports from deep space scouts. Human ships, new designs, dozens of them heading toward our positions. New ships? How? We destroyed all their shipyards. We destroyed the ones we knew about, sir. Apparently, humans have been building secret construction facilities for years. And these ships? You need to see this. The tactical display showed the scans of the new human vessels. They were larger than anything humanity had built before, sleek and deadly looking. But what made Thexphalan's blood run cold were the readings. The shields were stronger than Korath shields. The weapon system showed energy signatures that matched Council technology but improved. How is this possible? He whispered. We believe humans have been stealing our technology for their entire time in the Council, the officer explained. Every treaty, every meeting, every diplomatic exchange was a chance to copy our designs. And they did not just copy, sir. They made it better. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the first human dreadnought, the Vengeance. Behind him, 49 sister ships waited in formation. They were humanity's masterpiece, born from desperation and genius. Every system was an improvement on stolen alien technology. Faster engines, stronger shields, deadlier weapons. All ships, this is Okonkwo, he broadcast to the fleet. For months we have bled. For months we have died. For months we have fought against impossible odds. Today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. Today we show them what happens when you try to destroy humanity. All ships full attack speed. Target? Korath Home Fleet. Captain Ramirez, now commanding her own dreadnought Retribution, felt her heart race. They were going to attack the Korath homeworld itself. It was insane. It was impossible. It was perfect. The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading straight into the heart of Korath space. When they emerged, they found the home fleet waiting. Over 3,000 ships defending their ancient homeworld. The Korath commander broadcast a warning. Human vessels, you are outgunned and outnumbered. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Okonkwo's response was to open fire. All 50 dreadnoughts unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The difference from previous battles was immediately obvious. Korath shields, which had easily deflected human weapons before, now flickered and failed under the improved firepower. Ships that had seemed invincible began taking damage. What is happening? The Korath commander shouted. Our shields should hold against their weapons. But they did not hold. Humanity had learned the shield frequencies during years of studying Council technology. They had learned the weaknesses, the gaps, the vulnerabilities. Now they exploited everything. The Vengeance charged straight at a Korath battlecruiser, shields at maximum. The alien ship fired everything it had. The human shields held. Then the Vengeance returned fire, punching through the enemy shields and tearing the battlecruiser apart from the inside. Across the battlefield, human ships fought with terrifying efficiency. They used AI targeting systems banned by the Council but perfected by humans. They used swarm tactics with hundreds of automated drones overwhelming enemy defenses. They used suicide drones that would ram ships if they ran out of ammunition. Target their command ship, Ramirez ordered. All weapons, maximum power. The Retribution and 5 other dreadnoughts focused their fire on the Korath flagship. The massive vessel tried to maneuver away, but human ships were faster now. The combined firepower overwhelmed its shields, breaching